All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
And today we're going to be talking about something that I know a lot of you folks are interested in based on the emails that we've gotten. It's about e-scooters.
Okay.
And specifically, we're going to be looking at some stuff that's happening in Denver, Colorado.
hmm
But e-scooters are all over the place nowadays, right?
Yeah, they're really kind of taken off in the last few years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got a really interesting article here from CBS News Colorado.
Yeah.
And this is actually something that a listener sent in.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, thanks to the tip there, whoever sent that in. It talks about how doctors and residents in Denver are starting to raise concerns
Oh.
about e-scooters injuries.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know that you are really big into urban planning,
Yes.
so I thought this would be right up your alley.
Yeah, absolutely. And Denver is a really fascinating case study because they've sort of embraced e-scooters, right? You see them everywhere downtown.
Yeah.
But then you have this kind of other side of the coin emerging where, you have these reports of injuries.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the article doesn't really give us a lot of hard numbers.
Right.
Right, it's more anecdotal, but the fact that doctors are actually speaking out about this,
Yeah.
it's kind of a red flag, you
Yeah.
know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when medical professionals start raising concerns like that, you definitely have to pay attention.
Yeah, yeah, and we were talking a little bit before the show. You're mentioning how Denver's bike infrastructure is kind of
Yeah.
not quite there yet.
It's lagging behind a bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you compare it to a city like Portland, for example,
Yeah.
which is, kind of famous for being bike friendly,
Sure.
they've invested a ton in dedicated bike lanes.
Right.
And that obviously has a spillover effect for e-scooters too.
Huh.
If you have that infrastructure in place,
That makes sense.
it creates a safer environment.
Yeah.
Denver's still kind of playing catch up in that regard.
Yeah, and I would imagine sharing the road with cars is going to be inherently more risky,
Oh, absolutely.
you know?
Question about that.
And you also made a really good point in your notes about the lack of protection for riders,
Right.
right? You're not in a car.
Exactly.
You're very exposed.
You're completely exposed. Yeah.
And so the article, one of the things that they talk about in the article is this woman who ended up with a broken elbow and a bunch of road rash
Oh, wow.
because she hit a pothole while she was riding an e-scooter.
Yeah, potholes are a nightmare on an e-scooter.
Yeah. So that makes me wonder, are Denver's roads even in good enough shape for this new wave of transportation?
That's a great question.
You know?
And I don't have, specific data on road conditions in different cities.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something that Denver needs to be thinking about, especially as e-scooters become even more popular.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, broken elbows sound bad enough,
Mm.
but, I was doing a little bit of research,
Yeah.
and it turns out that head injuries are actually the most common.
Oh, really?
And concerning type of e-scooter injury, there was a study, I think it was in the Journal of Trauma and Acute Care Surgery.
Okay.
They found that almost 40% of e-scooter accidents involved head trauma,
Wow.
which is
That's significant.
scary. Yeah. And I guess that also makes you think about rider behavior,
Absolutely.
right? Like, are people wearing helmets? Are they following traffic rules?
Right. Are they riding responsibly?
Exactly.
Or the rental companies, doing a good job of educating riders about safety?
Yeah.
Are there clear instructions?
Yeah, it seems like there's kind of a lot of factors at play here.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack for sure.
It's not just about, are the scooters themselves dangerous?
Right.
It's also about the environment that they're being used in.
Exactly. And the behavior of the people using them.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of like saying cars are dangerous.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course they can be dangerous.
Sure.
But there are things we can do to mitigate that danger.
Yeah, it makes me think about, when we were talking about those potholes and the road conditions, like, isn't it kind of too easy to just blame the scooters?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's important to focus on the things that we can control,
Right.
like rider education infrastructure,
Yeah.
making sure the roads are in good shape.
So you're saying that it's not about demonizing e-scooters?
Exactly. They have the potential to be a really positive force in urban transportation.
Okay.
I mean, think about it. They're eco-friendly. They can help reduce traffic congestion.
Sure.
They offer a fun and convenient way to get around.
But they do come with risks
They do,
that
though.
we need to acknowledge.
Yeah, and I think that's where the conversation needs to be focused,
Yeah.
How do we harness the benefits of this new technology while minimizing the risks?
Yeah, and it seems like, thinking back to the article and some of the points that you made, there's kind of a shared responsibility here.
Absolutely.
It's not just on the riders.
Right.
It's on the cities.
Yes.
Yep. To provide the infrastructure.
The companies that are renting these scooters,
Right.
they have a responsibility to ensure rider safety.
And that makes me wonder, is it enough for the rental companies to just,
Yeah.
slap a warning label on there and say, hey, be careful?
Right. You raise a good point. I mean, some cities are starting to require e-scooter companies to implement safety tutorials
Oh, interesting.
or even in-app tests before riders can unlock a scooter.
That's kind of cool.
So, you have to actually prove that you understand
Yeah.
the basic rules of the road.
And how to operate the thing
Exactly.
before you can just take off.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I think those kinds of initiatives are really promising.
Yeah, so we've talked about, the injuries themselves.
Right.
But I think this raises a bigger question about how cities like Denver
Mm-hmm.
are adapting
Absolutely.
to this new form of transportation.
It's a whole new paradigm.
Yeah.
And cities are having to kind of rethink their approach to transportation planning.
Yeah.
It's not just about cars and buses anymore.
So what can cities do?
Well, I think it's a multi-pronged approach. Investing in dedicated bike lanes is huge.
Okay.
Improving road maintenance so you don't have those potholes. Those are big ones.
Yeah.
Working with e-scooter companies on safety features and education. I think it really requires a collaborative effort.
Okay, yeah, so you're saying it's not just the city's responsibility.
Right. It's a shared
That's
responsibility.
everybody
Exactly.
working together.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, some people argue that e-scooters are actually making cities safer
Right.
by reducing car traffic.
Yeah, that's an interesting argument.
Yeah, so how do we weigh those potential benefits
Right.
against the risks that we've been talking about?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
It's about finding that sweet spot where we can harness the benefits of micromobility while minimizing the risks.
So to sum up, it sounds like e-scooters are a cool way to get around, but they do come with some risks. Denver's seeing this concerning trend of e-scooter injuries, possibly linked to infrastructure gaps and rider behavior. And there's a shared responsibility here. Cities, companies, and riders all need to step up.
I completely agree.
Oh.
And, I think as someone who's really passionate about urban planning, I'd like to leave you with this thought. How would you design a city that truly embraces micromobility safely and sustainably? What would that look like in Denver?
Wow, that's a great question.
Where would you start?
Yeah, that's definitely something for everyone to think about. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.
My pleasure.